self-serving, decadent, lazy, pissant slobs. Okay? So prove it. Tell them, say, show me a time in history when it was ever tried, when humanity was ever free from birth. Show me. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So I know what I'm talking. I'm not radical. I'm logical. I'm reasonable. I'm the mathematician type, the scientific type, the reasonable, the pragmatic, okay, practical type. That's what I am. And fiscally conservative type. I want lower taxes, a lower cost of living tax. You know, speaking of forests and all this, they got this Lassen National Forest, I believe it's called. It's probably about 70 miles, I guess, as a crow flies from where I am. But up here, they got these old growth ponderosa trees, and every year they let natural lightning strikes burn up the underbrush. So any grass in the meadows and stuff is burned up, and it happens without fail, from what I understand, virtually every year. Natural Mother Nature is taking care of the forest and protecting the old growth trees. So you've got to burn up the underbrush. You understand Mother Nature. This is God working on Mother Earth. God. And if you were driving in your car through Lassen National Park and you saw a lightning strike ignite the field and you thought you were a good Samaritan, you're going to go put out the fire, likely you will go to jail because you are interfering with Mother Nature. But they're all out there willy-nilly putting out these forest fires instead of just focusing on the structures. I believe in protecting structures. But as far as the forest goes, by them not putting out these fires, they let that underbrush grows up, and that's why they get these really hot fires that burn out of control. And they're much more destructive. They lose more structures and everything. They're not listening to Mother Nature. They're not listening to God. But their jobs it's important. They got to keep their jobs, so they got to be relevant. They got to go put out forest fires and make the problem worse. That's the same thing. Look at this, $50 billion a year goes into Section 8 housing to subsidize those that can't afford to pay their housing costs, and it makes the problem worse. Same thing. You understand how this goes? On down the line. It's just madness. It's just the rule of the day in our society. And it's got to come to an end. It's got to. I mean, we're Americans. We're not just stupid people, okay? We're smart people. And, people are going to figure this thing out eventually. One way or another, sooner or later, okay, the worm's going to turn. All right, I'm on to some thoughts from the last week or two, where I left off last week. Sick logic is known as ill logic for a good reason. It comes from people who are not well, which is the vast majority. If you trust in the establishment, you think that this is the right path to keep going down this trajectory of wealth imbalance and less social, political, economic cohesion in the land, more division. I feel really sorry for you. I really do. And you're illogical. You're sick to believe that that's the right thing to do, is just go with the flow and, be complacent and indifferent to the suffering that's being inflicted upon other people. I really feel sorry for you. With the way my mind works in such blatant contrast to the establishment status quo paradigm, I typically feel I am living in an alternative universe, as do people whom think similarly to this current but soon to be demolished world beast system of money. One of many good litmus tests to determine if you are by chance an elitist hypocrite on the highway to hell is to ask yourself, do I get my rocks off by having things, metaphorically speaking, of course, by having things that others cannot or do not have? Or does such a notion turn your stomach? See, that's how a lot of people are. They if everybody could have the stuff that they have, they would not be happy campers. They wouldn't like it. They love their lives in this world, and that's one of the reasons, is that they have attained stuff, a level of success that others have not or cannot. So it's good for their ego, good for their carnal, worldly nature, and it's stinking thinking. Let's put it that way. They're evil on the highway to hell. A lot of people don't know it. That's why it's your obligation, my obligation, to point these things out, that they may be deceived, delusional, tricked into believing that this is the right path, this beast system, and keep going on this trajectory, and don't rock the boat, this sort of thing. God, I knows I feel sorry for these people. A surefire way to know when someone's got your goat is if you have hatred in your heart toward them. That's right. You better, watch your thoughts, protect your mind, protect your words. Sure, I want to be successful. Everyone wants to be successful, right? After all, why wouldn't we? The most important question we should all ask is, do we really understand the meaning of the word only on a secular, superficial definition basis, or are we beholding the deeper, proper definition, spiritual, right? Knowing those things we really ought to value as most precious is imperative to getting it together in relative to this subject. For example, do we value one another infinitely more than any temporal possessions, material possessions? It's something we all have to ask, Are our treasures the same as God's treasures? Because if they are, they'll be you. They'll be me. We'll value each other above all else. Our hearts will be pure, and we'll see good. We'll see God. Solving humanity's social, political, and economic, seemingly overwhelming social, political, and economic problems would result in mass unemployment. The only way mass unemployment is a bad thing is if we perceive it as such. How many people truly understand just how wantonly the perceptions of humanity at large have been manipulated at the hands of evil men? You've got to understand that. They've trained us to believe that even if you had prosperity, you don't want to just give people everything because they'll become decadent and lazy slobs. Well, prove it. Prove it, because it's never been tried. Share the inherent wealth of this planet, because thus saith the Lord in your Bible. Okay, and the Jews have to believe the same. The Muslims have to believe the same. That God's will must override the will of any man or all the men. Even if all the men disagree with God, God's will is just still going to be implemented upon the earth. And in that world, believe me, there's not going to be any form of money at all, digital or otherwise. It's hard to be honest or even to know what that means when all our lives we have been surreptitiously, subtly, stealthily, diabolically trained to be dishonest. That's right. We're filled with fear. It's a very fear-driven world. So when you're fearful, you're inclined to be less than truthful. Let's put it that way. A critical mass is not to be confused with a majority. Sometimes all it takes is 10% or less. For example, the '08 bankster takeover is a prime example. A sardonic statement from a hypothetical atheist. You idiot believers say that there is a God, that this God is all-loving, all-powerful. Then explain why it gets so damned hot, so damned cold, why the natural disasters, why the wars, why? Believers better have a good comeback. That's what I say. Believers better have a damn good comeback. You better be able to explain about God and why he allows all these things, this natural suffering that we go through organically from the fall, the original sin, and all the consequences, implications thereof, thorns on roses, and on and on and on. Why Satan hates us, because we're made in the image and likeness of God. Instant karma is when a hacker discovers he is simultaneously being hacked by the one he is hacking. Wouldn't that be funny? A couple hackers hacking each other at the same time. You go, oh my God, this guy's hacking me. He's looking in my files and everything, and also I'm doing it at the very same time. Wouldn't that be instant karma? Learning to love one's enemy from the heart is much like learning algebra. When a math teacher gives the proper method for dividing a fraction, you are puzzled and ask for an explanation as to why that is the method and how it works. As such, there is a learning curve which involves a modicum of trust in the instructor's method, which achieves the desired result, even though you never got your questions answered of why and how answered. It's just how and why it's done to achieve accurate results. It's just like I talk about, free market. Free market needs to be understood as competitive. And this is why you shouldn't bail out these criminals at '08. Okay, that was absolutely the wrong thing to do. That was meddling. That was interference. And that didn't allow things to work. So, I mean, you follow the method. You say, well, if we don't interfere, all these implications, so it's like the lesser of two evils is what they sell it as. So this is why the 10%, well, we're smarter, we're elitist, and we're the ones that deserve to be ruling, and you voted us in office, these political figures that validate, legitimize all this criminal behavior by these people, illogical, unmathematical, and the results are going to be opposite of what's right. It's just they're not following the instructions, and they're doing it willfully. They know that. It's by deliberation, intentionally. They need things wrecked up. In order to steal from people, they've got to obfuscate. They've got to complicate. They've got to hide things. It's got to be surreptitious and clandestine and diabolical. Their methodry, and it's got to be just ruthless to the people at large is what their policies are, and it's on purpose. It's not incompetence. Not incompetence. Like this Bilderberger guy that defected purportedly. He's saying that they're profoundly, or he didn't even use profoundly incompetence, but that's not even it. These people are evil genius. They know what the hell they're doing. Tell me they didn't know about that, willy-nilly excessive lending, reckless lending they did in housing back then during that period leading up to '08. They didn't know that would happen. All these people would lose their houses in foreclosure. They're liars. This guy's a liar to say that this is incompetence. He's a liar. He knows it, unless he's a babbling, bumbling idiot, which he might be. I don't know. Anybody that would be a part of the Bilderberg group might be. I honestly don't care. In fact, it's probably for the best that my name doesn't come up in any way widely notorious prominent media outlets. I am quite satisfied in just being your humble friend, a nobody. And if you want to thank me for something I've said that touched you in any positive way, just thank God, the giver of all good things. Yes, if I can help somebody, fantastic. I have no doubt I'm getting my reward instantly, believe me. Just getting everything off my chest and trying to explain stuff as best I can, as logically as I can, and concisely and coherently as I can. But doesn't mean I'm going to succeed, but it's what I have to do. I'm your friend. I'm everybody's friend. I have to be. That's the person I have to be to live with myself, to keep coping, to keep contending. I'm on everybody's side, even the evildoers. Not that I would capitulate to anything. I'm not going to be a part of their evil, but I'm going to expose them because I am their friend. I don't want their blood on my hands or on my head, their metaphorical blood. When one wants to practice evil, and anyone stands in their way in any way, evildoers invariably tend to get very angry, frustrated, and dangerous. And the best way you can stand in their way is by loving them. Jesus taught it is harder for a rich man to enter heaven, of course, than a camel to fit through the eye of a needle. Of course, he went on to say that the things that are impossible for men are possible with God. So being rich does not automatically exclude you from going to heaven or inheriting a heaven on earth, as it's written. When we have this new age and the renewal of all things, it's going to be a paradise on earth. Our society, rather this current beast system, non-verbally slanders the poor for society's problems. That somehow it is the individual that cannot, quote, succeed and is the root cause of social, political, and economic unrest and miseries. This is a thought narrative pushed through directional propaganda by the mainstream media. But the fact is, people are being impoverished for a long time, have been, by design. Always remember the poor do not have the power in this system. Therefore, they are least culpable for social, political, and economic injustice. We all know who the power in this current system, world system, lies with, and that is the rich. The people with the power are the rich people. We all know.